All right, let's dive into this fascinating world of photobiomodulation, PBM, using light to treat medical conditions like endometriosis. It's kind of surprising, when you realize just how many women are affected by endometriosis. Something like 11% of women in the U.S., just between the ages of 15 and 44. And it's not just about pain either.
Absolutely. It really impacts a woman's quality of life in so many ways. It can make it harder to become pregnant, and some research even suggests potential links to other health issues, things like asthma, autoimmune diseases, even fibromyalgia.
Wow, yeah, it really paints a picture of just how significant this condition is. And, when you consider the limited treatment options that are currently available, it really underscores the need for innovative therapies.
Right. And that's where PBM is showing some real promise as a potential solution. And what's great is that it's generally considered a gentler approach compared to some of the more traditional treatments out there.
Okay, so when we say PVM, a lot of people might immediately think of lasers, like the kind used in surgery. But PBM is actually something entirely different, right?
Yeah, it's not about heat or cutting, it's non-invasive. We're talking about using very specific wavelengths of red and near-infrared light.
hmm
And get this, studies are showing that these particular wavelengths, especially the 635 nanometer and 810 nanometer wavelengths, can actually reduce both the inflammation and the pain associated with
Oh,
endometriosis.
really? That's amazing. So, how does shining light on these areas lead to that kind of pain reduction? What's the science behind that?
Well, think of it kind of like giving your cells a little energy boost.
Yeah.
The way it works is PBM targets the mitochondria, which are these tiny powerhouses inside our cells. And by stimulating the mitochondria, it helps them produce more ATP,
AGP.
which
Okay.
is basically the fuel that powers our cells. So when you increase ATP production, you're helping the cells function better, repair themselves. And that basically kickstarts the healing process.
So it's not just masking the pain, it's actually addressing the issue.
Why?
I see. So I'm guessing that this ties into the anti-inflammatory effects as well.
Exactly. PBM also helps to calm down the inflammation by reducing those chemical messengers that actually cause inflammation in the first place. And on top of that, it actually promotes the production of anti-inflammatory ones. So you're basically tackling the problem from both sides, reducing the bad stuff and increasing the good stuff.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's a two-pronged approach, basically.
Yeah.
And there's research suggesting it may even go beyond just pain management. I was reading about a study. It showed a really significant improvement in overall pelvic pain for women with IC/BPS,
Oh, interesting.
which is a condition that's, often linked to endometriosis.
Yeah.
And what was really remarkable was that the patients who had the most severe pain, they actually experienced the most dramatic pain reduction.
That's really promising. And some researchers believe that PBM could even have the potential to address the root causes of endometriosis, not just the symptoms, by, improving cellular function and promoting that deeper level healing.
So we could be talking about not just managing the condition, but actually impacting its progression. That would be incredible.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder what other possibilities might be out there with these light-based therapies.
Absolutely. And there's growing evidence that PBM might also have a positive impact on reproductive health in general.
Oh, really?
We talked about the cellular energy boost and the reduction in inflammation, right? Well, some researchers believe this could actually improve the chances of conception for women who are struggling with, endometriosis-related infertility.
Wow, that's incredible. So PBM could potentially be a game changer for women who are facing these really difficult challenges related to endometriosis. It's almost like it sounds too good to be true. Are there any downsides to this type of therapy? What about risks or side effects?
Right. That's a great question. And actually, one of the most remarkable things about photobiomodulation is that it has a really good safety profile. Remember, it's non-invasive, it's non-thermal. We're not talking about burning or cutting tissues or anything like that.
Okay, that's reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
But I guess with any medical treatment, there's always the possibility of some side effects, right?
Of course. Yeah. And, there have been some reports of really minor temporary side effects, things like, maybe some redness or irritation at the treatment site, things that usually go away pretty quickly on their own. But as far as long-term effects go, based on the available data, there haven't been any reports of serious long-term side effects associated with PBM.
Okay, so potentially groundbreaking treatment with a very promising safety profile. That's a pretty big deal, especially compared to some of the more, invasive procedures or medications that are often used for endometriosis.
It is. It is. And, the potential benefits like pain relief, possible improvement in the condition itself, and even, a potential boost to fertility, that really makes the safety profile of photobiomodulation even more appealing. But let's, dive a bit deeper into the actual science behind it, like the specific wavelengths that are used.
Yeah, okay, so you mentioned the 635 nanometer and 810 nanometers earlier. What's so special about those specific wavelengths?
Well, research suggests that these wavelengths are particularly effective at tackling both inflammation and pain associated with endometriosis. And the reason for that is they're able to penetrate deep into the tissues, reaching those affected areas. It's not like a one-size-fits-all approach, though, right? The science behind photobiomodulation is complex. Optimizing treatment really involves a lot of careful consideration of various factors, like not just the wavelengths, but also the treatment duration, the frequency, all of that stuff.
It's really remarkable to think that something as simple as light can have such a profound impact on the human body.
It really is. I mean, think about it. Light plays such a vital role in life in general. Photosynthesis in plants, our own circadian rhythms. It's amazing to think about how we can harness that power for, therapeutic purposes.
It does feel like a very natural approach. You're not introducing some foreign substance or, drastically altering the body. You're just using light to support its own healing mechanisms.
I agree. And, I think we're seeing a growing interest in therapies that work in harmony with the body's natural processes. And photobiomodulation really fits right into that paradigm.
It's a really exciting area of research. And it definitely makes you think about the future of PBM. Like, where do you see this technology going in the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years?
Well, the future of photobiomodulation is, I'd say, incredibly bright. As more research comes out and validates its effectiveness and safety, I think we're going to see even wider adoption of it in all kinds of medical fields. We can probably expect more sophisticated devices, treatment protocols, and I wouldn't be surprised if we even start seeing home use devices for certain conditions.
Home use devices. So you're picturing a future where people might be able to manage certain conditions with light therapy right in their own homes.
Exactly. Think about it. Being able to address chronic pain, reduce inflammation, even support wound healing with a device that you can use at home, it's pretty amazing. And it could really revolutionize how we approach healthcare.
It sounds almost like science fiction, but it's, becoming more and more realistic every day.
It is. It is. And it's a really exciting time to be, witnessing the evolution of medicine in this way.
Well, this has been a truly eye-opening look into the world of photobiomodulation. We've covered so much, the science, the potential for treating endometriosis, all sorts of things. But before we wrap up this first part, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners? Any key takeaways or final thoughts?
Yeah, I think the most important takeaway is this. While photobiomodulation shows incredible promise, it's not a magic bullet, right? I mean, further research is always needed. And it's really crucial for everyone to, approach any new treatment with informed caution and realistic expectations.
Absolutely. And speaking of realistic expectations, I'm sure our listeners are wondering, where can they actually access this type of treatment? Like, how do they find a qualified practitioner? How do they even know if this is something that's available in their area?
That's a great question, and it's one that we're going to dive into a lot more deeply in just a bit. But before we do that, I think it's important to highlight a company that's really leading the way in this field, MedWave Group. They're developing cutting-edge PBM devices, specifically designed for treating conditions like endometriosis. And their dedication to research and innovation is really, really impressive.
That's fantastic. And, we'll definitely make sure that our listeners have all the information they need about MedWave Group and their work.
Yeah.
But, before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about the accessibility of PBM in general.
Okay, good idea. So PBM may not be readily available at every doctor's office just yet. But there are more and more specialized clinics and practitioners who are starting to incorporate this therapy into their practices. So if you're interested in exploring this option, I would recommend starting with, a good, thorough online search. Look for clinics or practitioners who specialize in photobiomodulation, particularly those who have experience treating conditions like, endometriosis or chronic pelvic pain. And of course, as always, consult with your doctor to discuss if this therapy is appropriate for you.
That's great advice. Always do your research, find a qualified practitioner, someone who can really tailor the treatment to your specific needs.
Exactly.
So now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about MedWave Group and how they're playing a big role in advancing PBM technology.
Especially for endometriosis. They've developed some pretty impressive devices, from what I understand.
They have. They have. And you know what I think is really interesting about their approach? It's their focus on creating devices that are not just effective, but also really user-friendly and accessible. They get it. For a lot of women, convenience and ease of use are really, really important factors when they're choosing a treatment option.
I like that. It makes it less intimidating, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It feels more like approachable.
Exactly. And their commitment to making this technology more accessible is, I think, really commendable.
It aligns with this idea of empowering people to take control of their own health, right?
I think so. And their dedication to research, that's another thing that sets them apart. They're always exploring new applications for PBM. They're constantly working on optimizing treatment protocols. They really want to be sure that they're providing the most effective and innovative solutions possible.
It's nice to see a company that's so deeply invested in both the science and the accessibility of this therapy. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I agree. It really speaks to their belief in the power of light to, to heal and to improve lives. I mean, they're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with PBM.
Yeah, it's clear that they're playing a vital role in bringing PBM to the forefront, especially when we talk about endometriosis treatment.
Mm.
And I think their work is going to continue to make a big impact in the lives of women who are, looking for relief and better well-being.
I think so too. I really believe that their commitment to innovation and accessibility, it's a beacon of hope for the future of endometriosis care.
Well, this has been an incredibly enlightening deep dive into the world of photobiomodulation and all the amazing work that MedWave Group is doing. It's really given us a lot to think about and a renewed appreciation for the power of light.
It has been a pleasure exploring all these possibilities with you.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on the deep dives. We'll be back soon with the second part of our exploration of photobiomodulation. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep shining a light on the possibilities.
Yeah, it's really great to see how companies like MedWave Group are taking all this research and actually turning it into something, real and helpful. Like they're developing these devices that are specifically designed to treat conditions like endometriosis. So it's making treatment much more accessible for women, which is huge.
That's fantastic. And I'm betting a lot of our listeners are probably curious to know a bit more about how these devices actually work. Can you give us kind of like a behind-the-scenes peek into what makes MedWave Group's technology so special?
Sure. One of the key things is their focus on using the right wavelengths of light for treating endometriosis. Remember, we talked about the 635 nanometer and 810 nanometer wavelengths. Well, their devices are designed to very precisely target those specific wavelengths. And that's because research has shown that those are the ones that are most effective in reducing both inflammation and pain.
Okay, so it's all about precision and really making sure that you're hitting the right target.
And the interesting thing is that MedWave Group isn't just focused on relieving pain. They're actually also investing in research to explore how these devices can potentially address the underlying causes of endometriosis. Like, for example, maybe actually reducing the growth of the endometrial tissue.
So they're looking at this from a more kind of holistic perspective, I guess, not just trying to manage the symptoms, but actually trying to tackle the problem at its root.
Right, exactly. And that's one of the things that I find most exciting about their work. It's not just about treating the pain. It's about understanding the whole picture and trying to find solutions that address the real cause of the problem.
I'm curious to know, how does MedWave Group's approach compare to other PBM devices or treatments that are already available? What sets them apart?
Well, one thing is that they're really dedicated to clinical research. They're constantly doing studies to see how well their devices work, to make sure they're effective, and to figure out the best ways to use them. So that commitment to evidence-based medicine means that they're always striving to provide the best possible care for their patients.
Yeah, that commitment to research is definitely something that I find reassuring, especially when we're talking about something that's relatively new like this.
And their focus on the user experience is another thing that really stands out to me. They're designing devices that are not just effective, but also really user-friendly and convenient. Like, think about a device that's portable, something that women can use in the comfort of their own homes. I think that's a big deal for a lot of people.
Absolutely. It just makes it so much easier for people to fit treatment into their lives,
Yeah,
without having to constantly go back and forth to a clinic.
exactly. It empowers them to take control of their own health and, manage their condition in a way that works for them.
I'm also curious about MedWave Group's long-term vision,
Yeah.
like where do they see this technology going in the future?
Well, they have some pretty ambitious goals for the future of PBM. They really see a world where it's not just an alternative therapy, but like a mainstream treatment option for a wide range of conditions. Endometriosis, of course, but so many other things as well.
That's a really powerful vision. So what are some of the steps that they're taking to make that vision a reality?
Well, a big part of it is investing in research and development. They're constantly innovating, they're always trying to improve their technology, and they're really committed to pushing the boundaries of what's possible with PBM. And another thing that's really important is education. So they're working to educate healthcare providers about the benefits of PBM and to advocate for wider adoption of this therapy. Because, if doctors and other healthcare professionals aren't aware of it or don't understand how it works, then it's never going to become a mainstream treatment option.
Right, that makes sense. It's really inspiring to see a company that's not just focused on developing the technology, but also on changing the way that we think about healthcare in general.
I agree. They're definitely pioneers in this field, and I think their work is making a real difference in the lives of women who are dealing with endometriosis.
Well, it's definitely clear that MedWave Group is a company to watch in the world of PBM. Their commitment to innovation, to research, and to accessibility is really paving the way for a brighter future for endometriosis treatment. So, we've been talking a lot about the company and the technology itself, but let's shift our focus for a moment back to the individual listener, the person who might be hearing about PBM for the very first time. What advice would you give to someone who's interested in exploring this treatment option for themselves?
I would say, first and foremost, do your research. Learn as much as you can about PBM and, talk to your doctor. See if they think it's right for you. It's important to approach any new treatment with, an informed and cautious mindset.
Absolutely. Having an open conversation with your doctor is so crucial, to figure out what the best course of treatment is for your specific situation.
Exactly. And I'd also remind listeners that even though PBM shows incredible promise, it's still a relatively new field. So, there's always more research to be done. And
Yeah,
it's important to have realistic expectations about what it can and can't do.
that's a really good point. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a new treatment, but it's important to stay grounded and remember that there are no quick fixes. So for our listeners who are ready to take that next step, they want to explore PBM a little bit further, what resources are out there to help them find, qualified practitioners or learn more about what MedWave Group has to offer?
Well, there's a lot of great information available online. For starters, you can check out MedWave Group's website. They have a ton of information about their technology, the research that they're doing, and even information about clinical trials. And they also have a directory on their website where you can actually search for qualified PBM providers in your area.
Well, that's fantastic. Having a centralized resource like that is so helpful, especially when you're trying to navigate a new and evolving field like this.
Absolutely. And if you want to, really delve deeper into the science behind PBM, there are also tons of research articles and studies available online. You can check out reputable medical journals or websites like PubMed, for example. There's a wealth of information up there if you're willing to look for it.
It's empowering,
Yeah.
for people to be able to access that kind of information so they can make informed decisions about their health care.
Yeah, definitely. Knowledge is power, and the more we understand about these new and innovative therapies, the better equipped we are to really take charge of our own health and well-being.
Well, this has been an incredibly informative look at the world of photobiomodulation, and especially the groundbreaking work that's being done by MedWave Group. We've talked about the science behind it, the technology itself, the potential benefits, and even what the future might hold for this exciting new field.
It's been a real pleasure joining you on this journey of discovery.
And to our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this episode and that it sparked your curiosity about the possibilities of PBM. The world of medicine is constantly evolving, and with companies like MedWave Group leading the charge, the future of healthcare is looking very bright indeed. Thanks for tuning in to the deep dive. We'll be back soon with the final part of our exploration of photobiomodulation. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep shining a light on the possibilities.
It's amazing to think that something as simple as light could be like the key to unlocking all these better treatments, especially for something like endometriosis, which can be so debilitating.
It is pretty remarkable, isn't it? It really feels like we're just starting to scratch the surface of what's possible with light therapy. We've talked a lot about MedWave Group and the incredible work they're doing with their PBM devices, but I'm curious, What about like the bigger picture? Like how accessible is this kind of treatment for the average person right now? That's a really good question. I mean, I'm guessing it's probably not as simple as, just walking into any doctor's office and saying, hey, I want to try PBM.
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely not that widespread just yet. It's still gaining traction. But the good news is that there are more and more specialized clinics and practitioners who are starting to incorporate PBM into their practices.
So, okay, let's say someone's listening to this and they're thinking, this sounds really promising. I want to explore this option. What's the best way for them to get started? Where should they even begin?
Well, I always recommend starting with good old-fashioned research. Take some time to learn as much as you can about PBM, what it is, how it works, that kind of thing. And then I'd say look for clinics or practitioners in your area who specialize in photobiomodulation, especially, those who have experience treating conditions like endometriosis or chronic pelvic pain. And of course, as always, it's a good idea to consult with your doctor, just to make sure that this therapy is a good fit for your individual situation.
That's great advice. Finding a qualified practitioner who can personalize the treatment is so important. And it sounds like this is an area where a company like MedWave Group can really make a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, not only are they developing the technology, but they're also putting a lot of effort into educating both patients and healthcare providers about PBM.
Oh, absolutely. They're playing a huge role in, advancing the field and making sure that PBM is more widely understood and accepted. Their commitment to research, to clinical trials, to education, it's really impressive.
It really speaks to their dedication, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the future. Where do you see PBM heading in the next few years? Are there any like big breakthroughs on the horizon that you're particularly excited about?
Oh, there's so much to be excited about. As research continues, I think we're going to see even more refined treatment protocols, more targeted therapies, and, we might even start seeing PBM being used for a wider range of conditions. Like right now, it's mostly being used for pain and inflammation, but imagine using light to treat things like wound healing, nerve damage, maybe even certain types of cancer. The possibilities are really vast.
Wow, that's incredible. It really does feel like we're just scratching the surface of what PBM could be capable of.
I agree. And I think we'll also see much greater accessibility. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing home use devices for specific conditions. So people could actually manage certain aspects of their health with a device that they can use in the comfort of their own home.
That would be a real game changer, wouldn't it? Especially for people with chronic conditions who need ongoing treatment. It could really transform how we think about healthcare as a whole.
Exactly. It's a really exciting time to be involved in this field. There's just so much potential for growth and innovation.
Well, this has been an incredibly eye-opening deep dive into the world of photobiomodulation. We've learned so much about the science behind it, the potential benefits, the amazing work being done by companies like MedWave Group, and what the future holds for this groundbreaking therapy.
It's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you. I always enjoy talking about this stuff.
And to our listeners, we want to thank you for joining us on this exploration. We hope this series has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to learn more about the possibilities of photobiomodulation. The world of medicine is constantly evolving, and with pioneers like MedWave Group leading the way, the future of healthcare is looking brighter than ever. Thanks for tuning in to the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep shining a light on the possibilities.